Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Canary Capital CEO says XRP is a competitor to Wall Street. Okay guys, let's get into it. Okay, so look, I do really overall agree with the sentiment here. So I'm going to go through the words that was said from this CEO, and then we're going to get a little bit deeper into this, and I'm going to explain like the pros and cons of this. But overall, what Ripple are trying to do, like they've shifted, right? Like, because I remember like back in the day where there was a point where, you know, like there was an interview with Brad Garlinghouse, and he was asking like, you know, well, what can XRP do with Swift? Like, could they look to replace Swift, etc.? And Brad was like, hey, we could complement Swift. We could work together, right? But I think now, obviously, we're at this point where all the adoption's coming in and the attitude has shifted, right? Like, Ripple are looking to get a banking license. They've basically said how, you know, they would look to try and get 14% of Swift's volume. So they've kind of gone from the whole we can work together to, hey, we're outright competing, right? And so I do agree with this sentiment overall, and it is a very big task that they're going through. But let's get into this, and then I can discuss this a bit further. So the CEO in question is Stephen McClurg, and we've got here him describing what he thinks the XRP ledger is. So speaking at Swell, McClurg described the XRP ledger as a modern payments backbone to rival legacy systems. Quote, the way to think about XRP is to think of it as the XRP ledger, and what that is financial rails, unquote. He said, quote, think about it as a competition for the financial system or competition on Wall Street. It's the rails ecosystem that will help drive global payments, unquote. Drawing from his background as an emerging market bond manager, McClurg noted that the global remittance inefficiencies were among the earliest indicators that drew him toward crypto. He highlighted that workers sending money home often face fees between 8% and 15%. Meanwhile, blockchain-based rails like XRP can drastically reduce this cost. Okay, so look, this is the thing, right? I completely agree with what he's saying here. And at the end of the day, like, what you've got to understand is, like, this is someone away from Ripple who's speaking about XRP, right? Like, yes, they are trying to create these ETFs and things like that. But if they're, like, you know, thinking the network isn't good, they don't have to speak positively, right? So there's no kind of, like, incentive here for this guy to kind of make things up. So this is what's going on. Like, it is direct competition. And look, I'm not going to get all conspiracy based on this, but I do think a lot of the hate that comes to Ripple and XRP is because they came with like a very bold attitude of, you know, we want to revolutionize finance. You know, we want to change the way things are done. We want to be the new modern era of payments, that kind of thing. And I think, like, to a degree, that's kind of what's been a bit of a hindrance for them. Like, I think that's what's actually caused them some issues, to be completely honest with you. I mean, look, we go back to the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, and you know, while I have admitted that I do think Ripple had done some wrongdoing in that lawsuit, at the end of the day, that could have been no more than a fine. It didn't need to be this big lawsuit where they basically try to financially cripple Ripple's business, right? And XRP along with it. And, you know, they were telling blatant lies in that lawsuit. Like, they were saying, like, oh, we don't see how XRP has utility. Come on. That's ridiculous. Like, they were lying about so many things in that lawsuit that it was clear that the lawsuit was bogus. Like, it was clear what they were trying to do. This wasn't, hey, you've done a bit wrong, so, you know, we're going to do this. We'll give you a slap on the wrist because it's not a big thing that you've done, but we've got to, you know, give you some kind of penalty. This was, no, we're going to over leverage this lawsuit and we're going to try and destroy you. That's literally what happened. Now, luckily, that's not how it turned out, but that was the attempt, right? And so when I look at the things that, you know, Ripple have to deal with, and even us as XRP holders, right? Like, what is it that everybody say about XRP? Oh, it's the banker's coin. Oh, Ripple, you know, they're part of the banks and the central banks, and they're trying to bring us down, and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's this attitude and this stigma that people have towards Ripple and XRP, and this is where I think some of it comes from. It's because Ripple and XRP, they want to modernize payments, and they just look at that as a banking type of feature, right? A banking product. And so by default, we get a lot of the slack for that, even though, there's other networks that are being utilized for, cross-border payments and stuff like that. There's plenty of other networks that are doing this type of stuff as well. It's just that they're not being utilized as a bridge currency. And I think it's just that Ripple and XRP were the first in that avenue. And so, it is a thing where they have to, take a lot of stick for that. But to me, what this shows you is how ambitious Ripple are being. And to me, what it shows you is where Ripple are trying to go. Like, they're trying to be a competitor to Wall Street. Now, look, I'll say this, going against the banks and the legacy financial system, it's a big task. And, the thing is, I think with Ripple, what they're trying to do here is shoot for the moon. If they miss, they're still among the stars, right? I think they're going to try and do the best that they can. I can't see them replacing legacy financial systems altogether. I'll just be completely honest about that. I just don't see that happening. But it's hey, if they could just take a percentage of their volume, that's a success, right? And so I think that's probably the mentality that Ripple have. I don't think that they believe they will take, all of the old legacy financial system out. I just don't think they believe that. But I think they just think we're going to do the best we absolutely can and make the most of what we can get out of it, though, and I think they will achieve that. I do think that Ripple will be a competitor. Now, again, to the degree, it will be, a threat. I'm not saying that, again, it's going to wipe out the banking system at all, but it still could be a thing where they're cutting into a piece of the pie, right? And the fact of the matter is, I think people have got to understand of how big a deal it is that Ripple can even compete. Ripple is what was originally a startup company. They've started from the ground up. They've, been granted the escrow because it wasn't Ripple who created XRP. There were people who created it before, and then Ripple was founded later on, with some of the creators being put on board with the company. But they built their way up to where they are. And to see what they've become, they're pretty much like a financial juggernaut in the crypto space. To me, if you ask me, the biggest crypto company is Ripple. Taking away exchanges and stuff like that, just general companies. I think Ripple is the biggest one from what I can see. And that's a big deal. And I do think they're going to have their place within the financial sector. And then with them, applying for the banking license as well, it shows you that they're trying to be amongst them. They're showing you that, yeah, we want to be here with you guys. We want to compete. And, the banking unions getting all these banks together to write this letter to the Congress, basically asking them to, not grant it or defer it or whatever. That just shows you, I'm just going to be real, that just shows you they don't want this to happen. And it is a threat to their bottom line. That's the truth. It's not a threat to their existence, but it's a threat to their bottom line. It absolutely is, because Ripple will take some of their business. That's just going to happen. I mean, we look at the deal now, the partnership that they've got with MasterCard. This is new technology that's coming through that's going to replace older systems. It's happening. So everything is going on chain. That's definitely going to happen. King Solomon had a meeting with some people in the financial industry, and he said, when he spoke to the guy, he said, yeah, everybody behind the scenes know that we're all going onto the blockchain. We're all very aware that that's where we're going now at this point. It's inevitable, so this stuff is coming, it's happening. And so I do believe that is their aim with Ripple. I do think they are trying to be competitors. Now, the thing that I will say about that in terms of the pros and the cons, the pros is obviously it's a very big move, and it's something that could be huge for Ripple and XRP. That's obviously, that's a no-brainer. The cons is obviously, you get into a point now where you was once just servicing people in terms of, hey, come and use our product, like cross-border payments, Ripple payments, or ODL as people might know it, it's now changing, right, to, well, no, we're competing with you guys now. So the certain aspects of it where, idols become rivals, right? Like the people that Ripple and the institutions that Ripple were looking up to and wanting to work with, they're now becoming their competition. They're I don't want to over, dramatize it, but they're enemies, right? Because they're trying to compete with them. And I do think that can cause issues, because I do think when you look at these, these institutions like, the banks, Swift, etc., like they're probably going to band together to go against Ripple, and part of me believes that the lawsuit with Ripple from the SEC, part of me does believe that was to try and hinder Ripple's growth. I do believe that was them trying to take Ripple out. And so it does definitely put you in a bit of a, an uphill battle, but at the end of the day, they've got the technology, and that's the one thing that they've got on their side. They have the technology to be able to really have this huge adoption, because at the end of the day, whether they like it or not, these banks, these people, these institutions, whatever, whether they like it or not, if you've got something out there that's better, they're going to use it. And a prime example of this is AI, right? Like when we look at AI, what that's going to do to industries, it's going to be devastating for humans, right? Because a lot of people will lose jobs, a lot of careers that were once, very lucrative, like a very good lucrative career for people, they won't exist anymore, because they won't need humans to do it anymore. They'll have AI. And so at the end of the day, even though this could be negative for humans, for the companies, it's going to make them a load of money because they're saving money and they're making more money. So it's going to happen. And that's what I say with like Ripple and XRP, like the technology is there. So whether people like it or not, it's going to happen, because people are not going to refrain from saving money, making more money, doing things cheaper, offering better services to the customers. They're not going to come away from that, right? Like it's going to happen. So I do think they stand a very good chance. So it's a very bold move that they're taking, but I think it's a very good one. I think it's a very good one. And so we'll see how all this pans out. But I agree, like, they are trying to compete. Like, that's pretty clear at this point. And as I say, while I don't think they're going to replace all these, older companies, the legacy financial system, I think they stand a chance to at least take a good share of their pie. I think that's a very real possibility. So, yeah, thought I'd share this with you guys. But I agree overall, and we'll see how this pans out. Like, I look forward to seeing, 5-10 years from now where, Ripple and XRP are. For me personally, I'm very confident about where they'll be. I think they're going to be very successful in my opinion. Time will tell. That's just my opinion. But yeah, I look forward to seeing like where this all is. Do you know what I mean? Look forward to seeing like, wow, like I got into this early and this is where I was, and now look at where everything is. But in my opinion, I think the future is going to be very bright. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell. Take care.